I'm Tracy Austin, your host of the People Strategy Podcast. This show provides interviews with organizational leaders and ongoing coaching experiences that highlight elevating people in organizations through a people strategy roadmap. Well, welcome to the People Strategy Podcast. My name is Tracy Austin, and I am the host. And we are going to dive into some great trends and best practices in talent management and organizational development. We have a fantastic guest today who is going to share his experience with that, along with the folks that he gets to work with daily within his business. So, Brian, we're so excited to have you with us. So we also definitely want to thank our listeners and those of you that have given us our 5-star reviews. And we love the reviews. So thank you so much for those. And we would love to have those continue in. And of course, we are sponsored by Elevated Talent Consulting and our leadership development program. So with that, if you are interested in becoming a participant in one of our leadership programs or have more questions about that, please feel free to reach out to us. So with that, Brian, I am so curious. And what I'm really curious about right now is how headshots play into the elevation of professionalism of folks inside of organizations.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great question. Headshots play into everything now within an organization, but I think professionalism is the biggest one. And that is because human beings, we are hardwired to make snap judgments about people immediately based on a photo. And what we judge the fastest, and that is the most sticking, if you will, is trustworthiness. And so now that image that somebody sees is associated with trust. And I think more and more companies are starting to understand that it's about it. So what does the photo do? And then also how it makes people feel. We're getting to hear, we're getting to meet with some amazing folks that are using it in so many different ways. I heard the average professional has 8 places now to use a headshot between Teams, your communication devices, internal, external, RFPs, you name it. So it's used everywhere.
Yeah, amazing. And as I'm looking at our video today, I will name, I'm like, oh my gosh, I see all the gray in here. And I know I'm getting my hair done this afternoon, but you're doing a lot with virtual headshots, and AI is something that is huge right now. It's really important. We're seeing a lot of AI headshots out there. I'm curious, what is your take on this? What's real? What's not real? All the things. Like, I'm so curious about that.
It's so, you're totally right. It's so interesting. This sort of AI headshot boom happened last year, right about the time that we actually launched our service. And so we were kind of figuring out what we were and exactly where we were going, kind of testing the market when AI headshots came out. And I certainly understand the appeal, right? I think so many folks love to look as good as they possibly can. And the AI headshots have a tendency to do that. But because it's easy, right? You take a few images from your camera roll, 15 images. I've tried a lot of these, and it actually took me like 30 minutes to find enough headshots in my camera roll that would be accepted into this AI headshot generator. But what comes out, unfortunately, just doesn't really look like you. And that's the hardest part, is that there's some inauthenticity. They're inauthentic. I'm not sure if inauthenticity is a word, but they have a tendency to be inauthentic, right? And if so, you're trying to put your authentic self forward. They can. There's actually a great article from The Atlantic called "AI Has a Hotness Problem" that describes exactly what these AI headshots are. And essentially, what they do is they take attractive qualities from the internet and can adjust or manipulate your face based on what is sort of attractive according to what the internet has to say about it. And so they can be problematic for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just at a conference called Prosper 360 the beginning of June. And Chip Hopper, who is, an AI futurist and whatnot, really spoke about the power of AI and what it is and how to use it in business and this and that. And I was so excited to talk with you today, Brian, just because of the AI as it's related to kind of some of those virtual headshots, et cetera. And from an HR perspective, and we will get into the people strategy piece of this, and I'm so excited for you to share your story of how you've built your business through kind of COVID and what that looks like and the folks that you get to talk with. And going back to kind of that AI piece from an HR perspective, let me tell you the issues that AI is creating, sexual harassment things and all of the things that are going on. Like sometimes the things that come across my desk of like, I don't even know what it's called, but like, oh, we're going to go put your face in all these different things. I'm going, wait a second, what's real? What's not? How do we figure that out? And how do we go back to who that person is?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. You hit the nail on the head. It just comes down to being able to showcase who you are. And AI is amazing, right? There's so many incredible things that can be done with AI. There are just some areas and where the human connection needs to be strong. And I think when you're showcasing yourself in sort of the digital you out there in the world, you want it to be you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So as we kind of transition back in, I am so curious about you as we talk about authentically ourselves and what that is. And, so for you, what got you into the business that you're in, which is photography and virtual headshots and working very specifically with organizations in that professional headshot manner?
Yeah, absolutely. I am not a photographer. I actually I wasn't a photographer. I live in LA and I was in the entertainment industry as an actor for a little bit. So I understood, headshots from an actor perspective, but most actors, like 99% of us, have to have day jobs, and mine happened to be in sales. And so I was doing sales when you go into a person's home and meet with them in person to have them sign physical documents when it comes to the sale. And so our organization grew from relatively small, 10 to 140 million in revenue. We grew from 20 salespeople to 250. We had this big sales event, and we had headshots for everyone. We knew it was important because we were B2C at that point. And it was a terrible experience. It felt like old school 90s backdrops, not really even glamour shots. Like everybody did not like their photos. And we're like, oh my gosh, that was so heavy of a logistical thing to do, to plan. It's very expensive. But at the end of the day, if nobody likes their photos, like what's the point? And so that job ended, and I had a friend of mine in LA, and I said, I'm going to work for myself. I said, I'm not going to work for anybody else again. I want to go out and do my own thing. My friend was starting a mobile photo studio called the Headshot Truck. So think of a food truck, but a photo studio inside of it. And I was like, that is brilliant. I think it would be great for corporate because we could park outside and they would come downstairs and let's do super efficient, modern headshots because, the industry was really behind. This was 2014. And so we started it, and the corporate side really blew up. We ended up having trucks in a couple of different markets. Whole other podcast to describe the amount of mistakes that we made. Well, that's a different whole other thing. But then we realized the trucks were not very scalable. But still, folks wanted us to be able to shoot all over the country. So Capturely, the current company, was born out of this necessity to be able to shoot all over the country, 25 major markets, working with larger organizations that would have multiple offices. And we would come in and project manage and execute on getting headshots for their team so that they were consistent and efficient and on brand and all that. We found kind of a niche with these larger organizations and conferences doing that. So that's kind of how the business evolved into what we're now doing, which is the virtual headshots.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And so as you did that, how did you end up growing your team? And, when we look at growing your team, like, what was the biggest mistake that you made within that? Because those are always the best stories. And then we'll get into like, what's the biggest win you had?
Yeah, absolutely. My business partner, Rob, I've got to hand it off, my hat off to Rob Eiler. He's incredible. He and I worked together at that company that helped grew. We worked together several times over our 30 years of friendship, but he really understood what it was like to grow and scale a business. And he understood sort of with photographers, most of them are independent contractors, right?
Mhm.
And he understood how to kind of create this team of independent contractors and everything. So really got to hand it to Rob for understanding how that was going to play out. And so it started with four of us that were partners. And then we had a number of staff that came over from the headshot truck
I
it's
just
kind of
love that name.
the headshot truck, right?
Yeah,
It's simple. It's a
it
big
is.
pink truck that,
Right.
it's like, yep, you know what we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's
yeah,
like the food trucks, right? But we've got the headshot truck.
that's right. Yeah. Food truck started in LA. That was the whole
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. So yeah, we had a small team. We said, all right, well, we know we need a photographer or two. We need an editor or two, but everybody had to know everything because there were so few of us and we had no infrastructure whatsoever. And we're building this as we go. And so, we had, I believe, 9 employees in February of 2020. We had just got an SBA loan. We're expanding. We're growing. Like boom, LinkedIn and Facebook became a client in February of 2020, and everything was looking up. And then the pandemic hit in March
Mhm.
when COVID hit. So that was a huge thing for obviously so many. But for us, we're an in-person photography company where 100% of our revenue comes from on-site office headshots and conferences. And immediately all of these were completely halted. So we went to revenue zero, and, we had just gotten this SBA loan, and, so like heavy pressure as a business owner to be in that spot. But I tell you what, we hunkered down. We had an incredibly resilient team who have grown tremendously. And we said, all right, how can we create a remote solution now that we can't do this in person? How do we figure this out? Technology didn't exist at the time. We weren't a technology company. And we did a few things that, sort of challenges that you make as an entrepreneur in terms of some different products and services that we decided to give a shot that ultimately didn't work. But what did was continuing to move towards this virtual headshot. And so, coming out of the pandemic, we really, it's like 2 years. Um, it was really tough. But then in March of last year, we launched the virtual headshot service, and it has completely exploded. It's changed our team. Our team has grown. But we still have almost all, I think 8 of the 9 employees that we had pre-pandemic are with us, and we're now at
Yeah.
15.
Amazing.
Incredible.
And, you said something really important, which was we have a very resilient team. And I'm curious, how did you and do you support the resiliency of your team when things aren't great?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's tough, right? Being a smaller company, we all rely on top line revenue, right? And all that. And so all of us right now as a small team get invested, and it's difficult. It's challenging because everything we do matters. And the team, I think we always were very honest with our team. I think that's something that really helped in terms of just being completely honest and sincere about what the situation was within the business, how that affects everyone, what we're trying to do to improve, et cetera. So I think having that transparency with our team created a really nice foundation. And then we wanted to empower everyone and give them opportunities to learn in different areas of the business, try new things. Like, for example, we had a amazing teammate who was more of a producer type who then moved over to business intelligence. And so many people started getting cross-trained, and we gave them opportunities to create jobs, like positions for themselves. So when you empower your team to try new things and to get excited, you're clear and transparent about what's going on with the business, and you all have a clear mission on where you're trying to go. I feel like those are the main components that kind of came into the resilience piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you name mission, and we're going to ensure our folks are in the right role, right? Like that fit to role for individuals. And so often, I think we put folks in wrong roles, not realizing that they're not a fit for that. Like we use predictive index with all of our clients, and we can see what that is. But from that producer type into that, so did they figure that out? Is that something that you figured out? And like, how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's got to be the right person in the right seat. And we didn't, when we became a tech company, new types of roles opened up.
Yeah.
So I think, that was a big opportunity for anyone who is excited to kind of learn more. Honestly, much of the way that it happened was fairly organically because we had a new CRM, and one of the teammates said, I think I want to take a stab at trying to how to figure this thing out, because she was a producer, and now she's kind of turned into this CRM HubSpot guru and is learning coding, which is super cool.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the answer for us has been cross training and saying, here's some things that need to be done. Who will jump in and do it? And then you're right. Sometimes it doesn't work for that person, but sometimes it really does. And I think we can't be afraid to allow folks to move around especially when the right culture fit, right? They're the right,
Yes,
they're the right person for your team, maybe wrong role. Hey, especially being a young startup as we're growing, those roles present themselves.
yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so as your team grew and you were able to kind of move those on, one thing you mentioned really early on was the gratitude that you had for Rob and how he really kind of took care of ICs and took care of folks on that side of it. And, that's one of those key people strategies that we hear a lot is when we can have the gratitude for the folks on our team, the transparency and the communication, we're building the trust and the authenticity in the environment that we're in.
Love it. Absolutely.
So, and what have been some of the key challenges for you with your team as you transitioned from, your pink truck to a tech company?
Yeah, I think some of the challenges with the team are the right seat challenges, because some of the roles that are starting to present themselves on the tech side cannot be filled by folks that are currently on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a challenge to have somebody that you love that maybe needs to transition into a different role, or knowing that we can't promote them into a certain role because they're not a tech person or what have you.
Right.
So I think, that has been certainly a struggle. The team has done a tremendous job with the adjustments that have needed to be made, sometimes moving people from one department to another. It's been really difficult. And then of course, I would say the hardest thing is just when you're a hand to mouth company, you're a bootstrap startup and you're moving along. When you're concerned about making payroll all the time, right? Which happens. That is an extreme struggle. And that's, again, goes back to kind of the resiliency of the team to be able to get through those hard times.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I'm curious. So we've talked a lot about kind of your team and how your team has grown. And you have the pleasure now of working with so many, people managers and folks within both marketing and HR and some pretty large organizations. And I'm really curious, how is this personalization, the virtual headshots, a people strategy for so many of the organizations that you work with?
Yeah, it's so the virtual headshot strategy is really enjoying seeing how different organizations are using it and why. And I think it comes down to everyone knows that leadership needs a headshot, right? Like the need part is leadership and everyone that's customer facing, sales, right? Everybody,
Right.
that's a minimum. You need to get them a headshot because they're on the website, et cetera, which is great. But what I have really enjoyed is when you have the employee engagement folks, the DEI folks, the culture folks that are understanding that a headshot is is part of the company culture. It is part of bringing someone to the team. And so what I'm seeing is, just like in a sport, practically, you don't want to bring your headshot, your old jersey from the old team into the new company, because it's not going to, you put it up on the website, you can see that they're different. You want those to be consistent and on brand. And the best way to do that is to empower a new employee. These are often done during onboarding, or we see them being done during milestones, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, whatever the case might be, offering them a great headshot that's going to be used in many places. And it's a really great way to have something so that that person has a photo that's consistent with the rest of the team that they've just joined. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Within so many of our programs for our HR folks, we talk about pre-boarding and that importance of, let me do an analogy first. It's like when you get engaged to someone and you put a ring on that finger, you do talk between the ring on the finger and the day of the wedding, right? So often we don't talk to new hires between the date that we send the offer letter and they sign it and the date that they actually start. And, what I so love about this, Brian, is we're inviting them into the team and a lot of times utilizing this within that pre-boarding process so that they feel a part of the team before they're actually in it. And that, again, they don't come in with the old jersey because we've enrolled them in our team and they're now a part of that.
I love that. Absolutely. I think that makes a ton of sense to do it during pre-boarding. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then the LinkedIn is updated and your whole team's reaching out to them and, all of the things then align. So good. And so what else are you noticing or hearing from the culture folks, DEI folks that you're chatting with?
I think a lot of the culture folks and DEI folks, aside from the headshots, just looking at some of the initiatives that they have, I'm really enjoying the kind of programming that we're seeing them put forth. A lot of programming around empowering their team, helping them with different ways they could learn new things. I think it's very exciting. I've got some other folks that do. A good friend of mine does these painting sessions where he comes in and does painting with the team. They all have their own paintings, or they can paint one shared painting up on the wall. And I think so. What I'm seeing his business really take off. It's going really well, Robert Oscar. But I'm also seeing other things like that where the company and the team is investing in getting people together more. I think we're seeing a lot more of getting back into the office and these events around engaging people within the office.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Well, I have two last questions for you. And these are some of my favorite questions when we are bringing folks into an organization. And I'll share why in a second. So my first question is, what is a work bucket list item for you?
Ooh, a work bucket list item. I love that. It's a great question. So a work bucket list item for me, I mean, I'm in a business development and strategic partnerships. And so I always wanted, bucket list for me would be if LinkedIn becomes a client again, a virtual headshots. To be honest with you, I feel like we created it in that way. One of my contacts from LinkedIn initially called me when the pandemic hit and said, you should try to create some virtual headshots. And so now that we have, that would be a huge bucket list item for me.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. So that work bucket list is LinkedIn as a client again. And what's a personal bucket list item for you?
A personal bucket list item for me would be having the opportunity to travel a lot more. My fiance and I want to be able to kind of van life it for a little bit and be remote. And so personally, we want to get out and see all of the parks, the federal parks in the United States and Canada.
Amazing. What's your favorite one so far?
Yosemite, it's so tough. Yosemite, I think, is our favorite. I love Yellowstone as well, but Yosemite is in not our backyard. It's a number of hours away, but just incredible up here in California.
Yeah, awesome. Kings Canyon and Sequoia are my number one. My number 2 is Crater Lake, and number 3 is Glacier. So
Oh, wow. I
I'll
love
plant
that.
those
Listen,
seeds for you.
yeah, please. No, those are all incredible. You're right. Sequoia and Kings, love
Oh my
it so
gosh.
much. I'm a fly fisherman, so any chance I get to get up into the Sierras, we love.
Amazing. So from a people strategy standpoint, the reason why I asked that question is, guess what? Folks leave organizations, and when we can offer them a career versus just a job and tie in what is important to them professionally and personally. So I'm sitting here going, okay, LinkedIn is a client and wanting to travel via van. How do we tie those two things together to hit both of those bucket list things in one? And when we can bring those up in our conversations, whether it's our reviews or one-on-ones, it really shows we care personally about that individual. So that's why I asked that as a people strategy.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Thank you. Inception.
You're welcome.
With that. That's great. Yeah, very cool.
And it's fun because we then get to connect on, oh my gosh, here's the parks we love. And a year in Yosemite is also fantastic. So
yeah. Oh, that's great. Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah. So with that, is there any last kind of nuggets you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I will say, so since HR became our decision maker with virtual headshots, I just find myself loving all of my meetings. I get HR folks are just simply the best. And I'm so excited that I've sort of feel like I found my people in this space. And so being able to kind of create a business that allows me to work with HR folks is just such a joy. So thank you for, everything that you do and helping these HR folks. And it's really fun to be part of the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you again for listening to the People Strategy Podcast. Again, if you've not yet given us that 5-star review, we would love it. And Brian, thank you and Capsually for sharing with us today and the virtual headshots and all the items. So we will link all of your information in the show notes. So with that, we will be with you again next week. Thank you so much for listening today. I'd love to connect with you. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn at Tracy, TRACI Austin, and at our website at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. If you'd love to learn more about our process, please reach out to us. And again, thank you so much for listening and sharing your feedback with us through a review. Have a fantastic day.